have something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with a crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Tonight, we're going to talk about the importance of voting. I have in the studio with me Teana Watson for judge. Teana is my very good friend who's running for judge, and she wants to tell you why it's important that she become the next judge in Fort Bend County. Teana, talk to me.
Thank you, Vivian, so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and your viewers on this show. Fort Bend County is one of the most ethnically diverse counties in the United States. However, the judiciary does not reflect the ethnic diversity of the county. The county is one that is growing very fast and rapidly, and we need judges who can understand the citizens of Fort Bend County. I have been a resident of Fort Bend County for over 27 years, a practicing attorney, former prosecutor, former municipal judge, and I've represented many citizens accused of offenses in Fort Bend County. Many citizens accused of crimes, in civil matters as well, and probate matters. I've represented citizens. It is important that you have a judge with integrity. It is important, and what is integrity? Is doing what's right. It's important you have a judge with compassion, who understands people. I've been representing clients. I understand the impact a criminal record has on a young person's livelihood and his future or her future. And it's important you have a judge that has a strong work ethic. I have all those characteristics, and I'm asking for citizens in Fort Bend County to vote for me. We have a great slate of candidates in Fort Bend County running, and everybody needs to get involved, whether it's with congressional races, Senate races, or judicial races. It makes you and empowers you as a citizen to have an impact on who is sitting in those benches and who is representing you.
Well, that's a very good answer. So explain the voting process to us. Let's talk about that. I know the ballots change from year to year, the polling locations change from year to year. Talk to us about voting
Sure.
and the process.
Well, hopefully you're registered, because yesterday was the last day to register to vote. However, if you have moved within the county, you can still vote. You should have changed your address, but we want to encourage you, no matter what you think your situation is, to go and still fill out a ballot, a provisional ballot if necessary, and vote. Fort Bend County has made it real easy, Vivian. We have voting centers. You can vote anywhere in the county, anytime.
Even on election day?
That is correct.
Oh,
Not
wow, I
just
didn't know
early
that.
voting, not just early voting, but even on election day, we have voting centers. So there's no excuse.
Tell me what that means.
So that means that there's no more precincts or, oh, this is my precinct, this is my poll, this is my neighborhood. You can go, if you live in Stafford, you can vote in Fulshire if that's on your way to work. You can vote in Missouri City if you live in Sugar Land, if that's on your way to work. We've made it convenient. We've made it where there's no longer a polling place where just it's your precinct, it's a voting center. And you can vote anywhere in the county, anytime.
I didn't know that. When did that start?
It started 2 election cycles.
Wow, I didn't know that.
We had it in 2016, and I want to say it may have started in 2014, but we definitely had it in 2016. Yeah.
Wow.
Very convenient, very progressive. Thank you, our voter election person, John Odom.
John Odom did that?
Is our voter election administrator.
All right. That's not the John Odom that works for the county attorney's office?
No.
Okay, it's a different
we
John
have
Odom.
one.
You have a different John Odom. Okay. So how does you change that? Because that would be great in Harris County if we could do that. Is that like, do you know if that required a citizen's vote? Or do you think that like Ann Bennett Harris is our,
Sure.
tax assessor. Could she just change that, do you think?
I believe the Commissioner's Court voted on that because they are the ones who decide the actual, if I'm not mistaken, polling locations. And they vote, and so they voted for that change.
Well, that's an important change.
It is.
Have you seen a sample ballot yet for this year?
I know it exists. I have to confess I have not studied it, but I know it is on the computer, and you can get it online, yes.
So someone can go to Fort Bend Votes or some website and see a sample ballot?
That's correct. Fort Bend elections, yes. Just Google Fort Bend elections, and the election results from past elections, as well as future registration and so on, is on there.
Wow, because that's important to me for citizens to look at the ballot so that when you go in, you're not intimidated by the process and you know who you want to vote for.
Correct.
So I think that's a good idea.
It is.
To do that. So you don't know where have they decided where you are on the ballot yet?
Yes, I am running for the county courts, which is way down ballot, but very important. People can straight ticket vote. This year will be the last year, and our state legislature codified this law, where you can, with one vote for everybody on the ballot for that particular party. If not, if you don't vote straight, I'm asking that you please go all the way down the ballot under the district courts or the county courts at law, and vote for me. And there are other county courts at law judges as well. And not much is below us. I think maybe the Justice of the Peace races are below us. So we're way down the ballot.
So how difficult will a voter have to find you? How do they find you?
Our ballots are about 2 pages,
Oh,
2 to 3 pages. They're not as bad as yours. No.
Harris County is a beast. Harris County ballots are a beast.
They are. They are.
And so that's why right now our system is designed for straight party voting. A lot of people, when they get enlightened a little bit, they say, oh, I'm not voting straight ticket. The problem is Texas is designed for straight ticket voting. So if you don't vote straight ticket, you can just vote for the person you know, but I know for Harris County, there might be 170 people on the ballot. So it's impossible to know 170 people. And that means you need to know double. You need to know 340, because you got to know which, 170 Democrats, 170 Republicans. So to just go through and pick is very difficult unless you rely on another organization to tell you who to vote for. So that's still not you voting.
Correct.
So the way Texas is designed, because it's so big, is our legislators in Austin decided you vote straight ticket. It's very difficult to run alone. So vote straight ticket, but if you can't, make sure that you get out and vote. So that's what we want you to do. And candidates will ask you to vote for them. Because I am a prosecutor now, I am a little bit unbiased, so I will not say anything as to who to vote for. And I don't vote in Fort Penn anyway. But of course, if I did, I would be voting for my friend, Teana Watson. So, Teana, tell me how this race has been going. Has it been a lot of dirty tricks? Have you had to contend with a lot of supporters, more than normal? What's the climate like in the political realm?
Well, it's pretty normal. Unfortunately, I've run before in Fort Bend. I am a Democrat, and it has been difficult for Democrats. But we have signs issues sometimes. Signs come down.
She's saying that people vandalize their signs. So she puts a sign up over the weekend, she and her sons, and when she drives by it next week, some mean-spirited person has taken her sign down. They cost her a lot of money. But anyway, go back.
And social media-wise, it's beefing up. I've gotten some social media inquiries just recently, and I answer them. Pretty much people, I think, have their minds made up, but I still answer all social media inquiries. So far, it's been okay, but I think it's starting to beef up. We have a highly contested DA's race in Fort Bend County. That's a very important position, and I think that probably lots of money is going in both ways, both parties, and I think it's going to heat up even more because of that position. The incumbent is not running, so it's an open seat.
And who are the people running?
Bryan Middleton is running as a Democrat. in Fort Bend County, and Clifford Bosick is the Republican.
Okay, and Bryan Middleton is a good friend of yours, isn't
Yes, very good friend, very qualified attorney, started out as a briefing attorney for the Court of Criminal Appeals, has worked in the DA's office, works as a prosecutor for several cities now, very qualified, very even-tempered, very mature person, a very good candidate for DA.
How exciting to have such a good candidate like Bryan Middleton running for DA in Fort Bend County.
Very exciting.
And but how's the race been for you? You're extremely qualified. It's difficult for women, especially women of color, to win and change the minds when there's been just one type of judge a lot in these small counties in Texas. So tell me what you're doing to try to invigorate people to say, hey, I'm a great candidate, because
Sure.
you are.
Thank you. Well, people are paying attention to judges. With the recent attention on people like Bill Cosby, popular people getting sentenced to prison. We have had quite a few movie stars and so on be involved in the system. People are seeing the importance, judicial discretion. The judge in Bill Cosby's case did not have to sentence him to prison, but he did. An 80-year-old man for 3 years, I think 3 to 10,
right?
3 to 10 years, and that's his discretion. We also obviously saw the Senate confirmation hearings of Brett Kavanaugh and the temperament that he provided and gave to the American public in his testimony, as well as the female who accused him of a sexual assault and how that played out. So people are understanding judges play a very significant role in policy as well. Not just that case that they may hear, but just in the impact that those cases have on the greater good of society. Women are paying attention more to the power structure of this country, just how much, yes, males have dominated in these areas, and how unfair it's been and how it's playing out.
Wow, it's interesting times. You know, I heard someone say on TV the other day that democracy is an experiment and it's 243 years old. I worry that democracy in the United States is not going to win. I pray that it wins. I'm hopeful. I'm doing my part as a public servant to help it to win, but I worry about democracy. I never imagined a time that we would talk about news as fake news.
Correct.
I never imagined a time that the news was not, what was said on the news was not fact-checked. I never imagined a time where people just lie. Right. And depending on what side you like, you believe the lie, and ethics don't matter. Correct. I never imagined that time. That can really sour one's opinion and view of democracy. When you look at a judge, are you thinking about the judge that we were raised with, the ones we respect, or are you thinking about the judges that seem biased and partisan?
When I think about that?
When you think about what a judge is today.
Well, I think that politics, unfortunately, here again, with the Kavanaugh hearings, is brought into the judiciary. And I think that we, going to law school, we looked at the Supreme Court as almost something that was sacred, untouched. Because when you think about it, it is the highest court, the highest law of the land. Presidents' cases can go before the Supreme Court, really. They should be able to anyway. And when politics and partisan is brought into the process, it flaws the process. It sours it. It's no more sacred. It's more so, like you said, biased and tainted, and not what it should be. We are living in a time where a lot of what makes us Americans and makes us great is really being challenged. The women that opposed and protested and so on were being ridiculed and criticized and even called weak, as opposed to being revolutionaries, patriots, strong people.
Respected.
You know, it's not good when we as Americans are degrading people because they're opposed to our beliefs or because they're different. Something is not right with our thinking as Americans, to me, when we do that, because that's supposed to be the beauty of our country, are the differences and the ability to protest and the ability to denounce and to grieve our government. And when people are getting arrested and talked about for that, then I think we're in a low place.
I know. So I'm excited about people like you that can restore fairness, equality, and justice to a system that, if not broken, is pretty bent. I mean, it's bent to the point of popping. I mean, if it doesn't pop pretty soon. So tell me about why is it so hard to run, and why do you think it's so hard to win?
Sure. Well, one party has been winning in Fort Bend County for all of my career, which is 27 years. And they have been able to use the resources and been able to have people in places to fortify their positions. And it's been difficult to get resources that are different from those resources, and it's been difficult to get people to change. Because of that, it's very hard. It's like you're breaking a ceiling, breaking down a wall. To be the first is very hard. We won't be the first Democrats, but if we win, when we win, we will be some of the first for a very long time. It's been a very long time. There's not been an African-American elected judge in Fort Bend County. And here again, that's another first. There's not been an African-American female. That's another first. So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, but it will take a lot of work, a lot of rethinking as well.
A lot of people think that because the votes or the ballots are counted electronically, that they are subject to manipulation. I know as a candidate, I was a candidate myself 2 times, and you just couldn't worry about that. You just had to run your race.
That's exactly right.
But there was a time, the second time I ran, when all of the voting machines in a county building were burned up. And all of them, all of the voting booths in Harris County were burned. And they had to, that was the second time Obama ran. So we had to skirmish a couple of weeks before the election to try to get voting booths from around the country. And we didn't have enough. So of course the black communities, the minority communities had very few. But as the election watchers watched and talked and called different places, the ones that were near Katy but still in Harris County, the ones on the other side of town they had a lot of them.
Sure.
And I thought that was just something you didn't even foresee happening, but it happened.
Right.
And what can you do about it?
Sure.
Now, how can a county building with all the voting booths not have sprinkler systems, not have, precautions, cameras?
Sure.
They all burned to the ground.
No, we've had incidences in Fort Bend, believe it or not. In 2016 when I ran, one of our biggest voting booths at Bush High School, I was there. The machines were not working. They were not operating. And it was in the morning. And the problem with a lot of the working class voters who end up voting mostly Democrat, that stood in the line waiting, they had to go to work. Their jobs were dependent on them having to go to work. Their families were dependent. And so what could we do? Could I tell somebody to give up their job to vote? I mean, you just was stuck. You just had to take it and pray that they would come back. And that was the key, because they left. People did leave to go to work. So we have had incidences. It was there at that high school, and then we had another one in a nearby area. None of those things happen in other areas. And so we have had some, I believe that the officials have worked hard to try to alleviate that. But there are areas where there's a lot more voting machines than others. And those are important things to look at. You're right about that. And as a candidate, we don't. We're so busy trying to get the vote out that last mechanic on voting day or near that time period, we don't. And so it's something to think about. Thank you.
One of the things that I worry about and wonder about are how do they count the ballots that fast? What is the algorithm? What is the process? I almost think we should go back to paper ballots and just let them be counted at each location. I'm just curious about that. I mean, if the Russians really infiltrated our system, if Facebook was manipulated by a lot of foreigners or, malcontents or whatever, why can't it be manipulated at the voting booth when it's all electronic?
We have to believe in the system. I know.
I'm just wondering. I just don't know. I just want to pose that question. How do we know?
Sure.
Why can't there be at least a test market of some of the locations, even though they're counted? Mm-hmm. Why can't even though it's electronic, why can't at least 10 of the locations in Houston, Harris County be just counted manually just to verify that it's about right?
Sure.
I worry about that process.
Sure. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have a check and balance on it. It would not hurt at all.
Because in our generation, they were paper counted.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
So I just want to pose those questions because they're frequently asked questions. Now let's talk about the millennials. What are they doing? The millennials will complain, they'll gripe, they'll make hashtags, they will Facebook, they will tweet, Snapchat. What are the millennials doing? Are they voting?
Well, it seems that Beto has gotten some excited, and thank God for that. Any excitement is good excitement, and so I'm hoping that his campaign and his efforts pay off. We have another candidate in Sugar Land, Sri Kulkarni, who's running for Congress, who also seems to have some millennials excited. Millennials are very hard. I've asked myself as a mom of 2 millennials, what did we do as parents to make them so difficult to engage and comply?
Because they will complain, they'll observe, they'll document in different social media platforms, but will they actually get out and vote? Do they understand the importance of it?
They will say that. They have a lot of talk and a lot of thoughts, but they don't act like they do. It was fashionable to vote for President Obama. It was something that they were engaged in and it was accepted. Since that time, it just doesn't appear to be fashionable. It doesn't appear to be something to bother with. And I don't know where that came from, because what you hope is that voting is a habit. And most of them were just about 18, 20 when President Obama came out in 2008. And so you were hoping that they developed that habit, but they didn't. And I'm not sure why. They're very influenced by Hollywood and by stardom.
Very much so.
And
very much so. It's amazing how influenced they are. But I know that Beto was doing a few gigs with like Bumby and some of the rappers, Trey the Truth. I think if it wasn't this past weekend, it's coming up. How do you think that'll measure?
I hope so. Taylor Swift got a huge surge in voter registration in Tennessee. Go Taylor. After she came out for, if I'm not mistaken, I think 2 Democratic Senate candidates.
And she talked about it at her concert.
And she came out. She came all the way out. There was a huge surge. So, my Lord, isn't that awesome? But it shows you how influenced they are by...
and that's why stars win elections. That's why Trump is the president, because of that.
Absolutely. He is the chief marketer, and he markets himself very well. I think that social media has allowed for the successful people are the people who know how to market themselves. And so media plays a huge role. Actors, actresses, athletes, and so on are markets, and therefore they have a lot of influence. And they have a lot of influence with the millennials. So,
wow.
I know. Interesting.
Interesting times.
Interesting times.
Interesting times. So tell me about block walking. Is that still fashionable? Do people still block walk, or is it more robocalling these days?
It's hard work, yes. We are knocking on doors, we're engaging voters, and I believe it works for the over 35. Here again, kind of non-millennial. I say millennials, I just group them all 18 to 35. Older people enjoy the engagement, they appreciate it, you get something from them. And I say older, I'm saying really, 40 and up, so I'm not saying old. I'm not sure how effective it is for that 18 to 35 millennial. First of all, not many of them are home, and if they are, they're not answering the door. I'm not getting much engagement from them block walking.
Well, where do you engage with them?
I think millennials engage millennials. They have a different way of talking, a different way of doing things, sleeping, eating, everything. And so I think you have to somewhat respect that.
Now, with the Taylor Swift phenomenon, is she engaging everybody to get involved, or is it just her millennial age group?
Interesting. I don't know the data on that. I hope they should. If they knew it was a surge, then they should be able to look at the date of births. I bet you it was millennials, but I don't know. I bet you she engaged millennials. Because how old is she about? Probably
30?
Yeah.
I don't know, 27?
That would be the age, yeah.
Because I think she started really young, so she might just be in her late 20s.
Sure. So millennials engaged millennials. She did. That's fascinating. It
is fascinating. And I remember when Obama was running, Beyonce and her husband engaged the Florida votes. I don't think they did that much in Texas.
I don't think so.
But if she came out for Beto, that might be the push that he needs. If Beyonce came out for Beto, that might be the push.
And you have, Andrew Gillum in Florida, who's running for governor. If I'm not mistaken, he's about 30. I saw something, 35, 30. He's in his 30s.
I don't know.
So, we'll see if he gets a lot of star power, too.
I know one of my heroes changed his residency to vote for Andrew Gillum. Yeah, he called his lawyers and said, "Can I change my residency?"
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, that's Tom Joyner, and you know that he puts his money where his mouth is.
Sure.
So hopefully he'll come back to Texas after that. I'm sure he has homes in every state.
Sure.
But he
powerful.
definitely changed his driver's license and changed his homestead and everything so he could vote in this election.
It's exciting. There's a candidate in Georgia, female, that's very qualified, Yale graduate, running for governor.
Is that Stacey Abrams?
Yes, it is. So people, and that's great. I mean, people are not so turned off about the government that they're actually energized and want to serve, want to help, see a need, and believe in the system. You have to believe that the system is fair and that you can make a difference. And we'll see. It should be exciting. November 6th should be very exciting.
It should be exciting. So tell me what you're doing on this last 27 days before the election.
Block walking. I have a team going out this weekend because I still believe in it. It's engagement. You have to meet people where they are. Here again, lots of events, meeting people. Wherever people are is where I should be. And giving them an opportunity to meet me, feel comfortable with me. Being a judge, justice is doing what's right. It's nothing really much more than that. Of course, following the law is doing what's right. And I'm a lawyer and I've been doing that for 27 years. But you have to believe that this person has good discernment, good judgment, will make a good decision, will be balanced. We'll be able to look at both sides. And so people need to feel comfortable about that. Lots of block walking, lots of cappuccino, lots of events. Sure.
So why do you say cappuccino? What do you mean, to stay up at night?
Stay up, keep the energy up. Energy is something that has to pass off. And so, yeah, lots of energy.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot to do. Tell me about the seat, County Criminal Court at Law Number 5. Tell me about what that looks like and who is the incumbent.
Sure. So this is actually, it will fall under a special election. Judge Cohen, Ron Cohen had the seat. He won it in 2016 and passed away in March of this year, March 2018. And so since there was so much time left on the seat, the law reads that there has to be, it's a vacancy that has to be filled in the next general election. So the party executive committee of each party chose, which are normally precinct chairs, and that's what it was, a candidate to be filled on the ballot, to be placed on the ballot for November. And I am the Democratic candidate. I had just become a candidate in June of this year. But I ran before, so although it's a 5-6 month election, I know how to do it. And the Republican candidate also had run quite a bit times before. He had never made it out of his primary, but he's the chosen Republican candidate. So the seat is vacant.
So visiting judges are there right now?
A special appointment from Commissioner's Court of a former judge is there now. Okay. Correct. Yes.
So it's an open seat.
Yes.
And that's all the more reasons why you need an experienced, balanced person with 27 years of experience like Teana Watson. So
thank you.
Your balance is good. It's open seat. Now, I'm sure since you've been in criminal justice for 27 years, you don't have to say your opponent's name, but I'm sure you know your opponent.
Yes, I do.
How does that feel?
Well, it's part of what we do. As lawyers, we are groomed to have opposition and groomed many times for the person across the courtroom to be someone we know and may even be buddies with. It's not a disrespect. It's nothing you take personally. It's part of our profession. That person is running as a Republican, and that's the candidate for that party, and I'm running as a Democrat. I'm the candidate. But I am me, and that person is who he is. And it's nothing personal. We take the roles very seriously. He, as a candidate, I sure am taking his role, and I know I'm taking my role very seriously. But at the end of the day, we're professionals, no matter what. And that's what we do all the time, even in the courtroom. That's what we do.
Wow, that's going to be very interesting. Are there many other races in Fort Bend for judge? How many other people are running or positions are open?
And I will say my opponent is African American, male, and so out of that race there will be an African American as judge of Fort Bend County.
So the first African American will be elected this time.
So from that perspective, it is historic. But I would like for it to be me. The other races are the county courts open seats again, county court 3, county court 4, I'm county court 5, and then there's county court 6. So you have 4 county courts, and then you have the 2 district courts, the 240th and the 268th district court. And they're all, the 240th has a judge that's somewhat of an incumbent judge. He's filled the role of a judge that passed away. Wow. But he's been in there for a while. And then the 268th judge retired by age. He aged out.
Wow.
That was Brady Elliott, yes.
Right. Wow.
So lots of new changes in Fort Bend County.
Right, so irregardless, you're going to have a lot of new judges.
You will have a lot of new judges. And you hope that the experienced ones get in because it's important. It's important to the clients, to the public, and to the efficiency of the system. Wow.
So that's good. So I know in the last, I guess, 15 years, Fort Bend County got a new courthouse. And as you know, Harris County, 18 years ago, got a new courthouse, and twice it's been evacuated for floods. First with Allison in 2001. We were out of the building for 2 years. And now again with Hurricane Harvey, we've been out for a year, and they don't plan for us to go back until 2020.
Oh my God.
That's for disaster and interesting planning and interesting, you know, I don't know. Is there a disaster plan? I don't know. We've moved about 3 times over the last 2 years. It's been the most awful thing I've ever done and experienced in my life professionally. But do you think that y'all, on that vein, have you outgrown your courthouse already?
Well, they're adding on to it right now.
Really?
Again, yes.
Again, they've added on it before. It's not that old.
Yeah.
How old is that building? About 10 years old?
Yes, they're adding on it right now. Yeah, we're constantly outgrowing things in Fort Bend. I mean, we really are. Buildings, we have moved, like for instance, the child abuse section is in a whole nother building.
Already?
Yes.
But see, that's what the taxpayers need to understand a little bit more about. Why are we outgrowing? Why is there more crime? There's some statistics that say crime is going down, but then on the other hand, why are our criminal courthouses having to grow and expand?
Sure.
Is it that police officers are arresting more people for crimes they didn't arrest you for before? I see a lot of that. What do the people have to say about that?
Well, we will say in Fort Bend our population is growing,
Yeah,
and that is true. I think we're supposed to reach 1 million by, I heard a statistic from someone, 2024, and maybe 2020. When I started out in Fort Bend County, we were at something like 200, 250.
Oh, wow.
I've seen a lot of growth. So we will say that.
But I wonder why they don't build because they already know, the census usually knows what the future growth of a town is projected to be. So I wonder why they don't build the courthouses accordingly.
Not sure.
I mean, I know that's commissioners.
Sure.
I know that's not your job, but I'm just throwing these ideas out. Because this brick and mortar costs a lot of money.
It costs a lot of money.
And it just seems like it would be cheaper to just make it, twice as big at the beginning, you know?
We repurpose our buildings. I'm sure you guys do as well. The old courthouse now, it's still a county building, but it's for another purpose.
What is it for now?
Partly the county clerk's office, where the birth certificates and so on are.
So they changed the courtrooms and made them into offices?
That's correct. And the county, no, not the county attorney's office, part of the treasurer's office and other government offices are in there now. So we repurpose the buildings. So I won't necessarily say they are, being wasteful.
That's good.
But it's hard. Fort Bend is trying to catch up. The way we do things is still antiquated. The cases take quite a bit of time before you get your first court date. From the date of arrest, it takes at least 6 weeks on misdemeanors before you get your first court date. There's a lot of delay that I'm hoping with the new DA and new judges understand the importance of justice delayed is justice denied. We move things a lot quicker. We should move things a lot quicker in an age where we have fax machines, emails, and electronic communications. You guys do move a lot quicker in Harris County. Even with your Harvey effect, you move a lot quicker than we do.
Well, we work really hard at it, but it's really taxing on people. And, their quality of life, being bussed back and forth to different buildings, driving far and not being in the same building where the prosecutors and the courthouse is. It's very, very taxing.
Sure.
Very, very taxing. So tell me what you would typically say when you cold call on someone, when you knock on their door, you're doing your block walking, knock on my door, tell me something, engage me. I'm tired, I just got off work.
Sure.
So tell me what you say.
So I'm very high energy, and my name is Teana Watson. I'm running for judge in Fort Bend County. I would love your vote. I'm a former prosecutor, former municipal judge. I have 27 years experience and would love for you to vote for me for judge. I give them that spiel pretty quickly. I let them know this is a court that covers juvenile. Our misdemeanor courts cover juvenile cases. Misdemeanor cases are mostly cases where we have a lot of marijuana possession cases, theft cases, a lot of young people, college people, younger people, first-time cases. Can be a gateway into something more serious. You need judges, people with experience who understands young people and understand the importance of second chances sometimes, and criminal records and criminal histories.
Well, what kind of responses do you get?
Mostly positive, yeah. There are some people who are very partisan, and when they see Democrat, it's over. And I respect that. It doesn't have anything to do with a judge, because we take the oath to swear to abide by the U.S. Constitution and the laws of the state of Texas. And that's what you do. The partisans should not be there. Unfortunately, it's what we have to work with, the tools we have to deal with to run for office. But it has nothing to do with qualifications, demeanor, or even your discernment as a judge.
Wow. So that sounds exciting. So you said some people won't even talk to you because you're a Dem instead of a Republican. That's interesting. But yet you said you see more Beto signs in Fort Bend than you've ever seen for any other Democratic candidate.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that's good. He's making a difference there.
He is making a difference. People want something new. They want something refreshing. It's gotten ugly, and we need to get out from the ugly into something fresh and new. And hopefully he stands for that, and hopefully people can grasp that. And hopefully he can make a difference. Yeah.
Well, he's certainly been fighting a good fight.
Yes.
I mean, he's been working on it for a couple of years, and I mean, he has fought. I haven't seen that kind of fight in Texas since I've been, not on a whole statewide level. I've seen a lot of state candidates, but I've never seen someone, really engaging constantly, trying every format, everything. I mean, the man's got to be exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an athlete. He has good energy, and
but what about his family? I know he hadn't seen them in 2 years.
I know, and it's natural. That's the key. When you see him, you know it's not fake. This is his calling. This is his purpose.
And he's genuinely concerned about people.
Genuinely concerned.
So it's great to be behind a leader like that. The governor's race, not so much. I mean, I'm not quite sure who our governor candidate is.
She was out yesterday. The Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in Fort Bend County had a very good forum. And Lupe Valdez, the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, appeared. She is the former sheriff of Dallas County. She has a great story about growing up in San Antonio, very poor, and how she received such a great education, and how she rose herself up, and how she cares about Texas and people and poor people. She's a good candidate.
I've never met her. How old a lady is she?
I believe she may be early 70s or late 60s.
Oh, she's that old. Because I'm from San Antonio, so I'm like, I never ran into a Lupe. What's her name?
Lupe Valdez.
Lupe Valdez. Yeah, I don't know her.
Yeah, I believe, maybe, yeah. And so, unfortunately, money is important in campaigns. Money is equal to speech.
Why does she want to be governor?
Well, I think her campaign suffers from lack of money, is my point, and that's why you haven't heard from her. But she's a great speech. She's concerned. She's a public servant. She was poor and knows what it's like, and she can relate to poor people. She understands the importance of education. She had a good education. She understands immigration. She understands people. She has a lot of great qualities on why to become governor. I believe that her funding has been lower than most that you need to run a successful.
Right. I haven't heard of her having campaigns or fundraisers in Houston.
Yeah.
Harris County, like you'll see on Facebook when different people are having fundraisers. I've seen Stacey Abrams here. I've seen Cory Booker here, but I have not seen Lupe Valdez. So I wish her well if she has a great story.
Sure.
It just seems like she came from obscurity. Most of the time you kind of know who the candidate is.
Sure.
So I'm surprised that she, we haven't heard from her, but God bless her and good luck. I mean, because we need more public servants, people with stories who can relate and have management skills. I mean, if she was the sheriff, she's won an election.
Sure.
And she's run a big department, because I know Harris County Sheriff's Office has over 5,000 employees.
Sure.
So I'm sure Dallas is very similar.
Sure, absolutely.
So she's run a big organization.
She has. So I think that Beto's campaign has probably taken a lot of the limelight in this election. But
it's interesting how he could come from obscurity and get money from El Paso, raise money, and she's from Dallas, a big county, and hasn't been able to raise as much. So that's kind of interesting to me, because nobody knew him either.
Right. Yeah.
It's just interesting.
It is.
But it's good she came out, and it's good she came to Fort Bend.
Sure.
Maybe I've just missed her.
Sure.
But I'm glad to know she has a good story.
Beto is very charismatic. And, that has its place as well. We just have to make sure the base gets out. We have to make sure the energy's there. We have to make sure people understand that without these people representing them, their lives will be affected by it. Their policies, their everyday life will not be the same. They may not see it in the short term, but in the long term, they will be affected by it. And it's almost selfish to not vote, really, because even if you feel like, well, it's not going to affect me, what about your children? And if you don't have children, just your future children. You owe it to them to make the world a better place. You owe it to them to show that you did what you could to make the world a better place. And by voting, you're speaking. You're saying that you're engaged and that's what you want to do.
Right. You've picked a person. You've picked a side.
Exactly.
Right. And that side won't be perfect, but at least it's one. I would rather have a side that I know is working for the people, whether I agree with every decision they're making, rather than one that I think is working for their self-interest. And that's one of the things that bothers me about politics now is the self-interest portion. I mean, we know that Congress and the president wanted Kavanaugh because Kavanaugh doesn't believe a sitting president should be under criminal indictment or have to answer a subpoena. And so because of that, that's the person we want. Now, that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be who's going to do and who is going to follow the legal concept of stare decisis.
Correct.
We don't have that anymore.
Correct.
We don't have anybody trying to make sure that the old laws are built upon the new laws and they're expanding with changing times. We want someone to just rewrite the laws.
Correct.
Which is not the law. That's not what we learned in law school.
That's correct.
So it's very disheartening.
It is.
Because I feel like sometimes I'm waking up in the twilight zone, because it doesn't seem like it's the world that I thought I knew.
Sure. Well, things are changing, and that's another thing we have to remember and stay engaged. The world is changing every day, and if you're not part of the change, you're going to be affected by the change, so you need to be part of it. It's changing all the time, and if you don't vote, you're letting everyone else make a decision for you. And here again, that's not wise. We tend to say, well, that's not the person because they're not the exact person. Well, you only have two choices. So get the person closest to the person you want. It may not be exactly the person you want. It may not be the perfect person you want, but they're closer than the other person.
And you want a Congress and a Senate that is going to make important decisions. Like we needed a Congress and Senate and president that would help us put the next Supreme Court justices on there if we wanted to continue with the laws that we feel comfortable with. Now people have basically, well, first of all, the people haven't spoken because the popular vote was not won by the president. But now that the people who are in office have spoken, we don't know what we're going to get.
Correct.
Because it won't be built off what law. I mean, Roe versus Wade has been basically our entire life.
Sure.
But that could very well change.
Sure.
I mean, so that's what's so unsettling to me. But a lot goes with that. It's not just pro-choice or let a woman control her body. Like Kamala Harris says, do you want women to control your body as men?
Correct.
So it's the control of one's body.
Correct.
I mean, I understand the anti-abortion sentiment, and I respect that. I think people have that right to feel that way.
Sure.
But I do think that the anti-abortion people should realize that people have a right to make a choice of their own body, whatever that circumstance is, even if they disagree with it. That's what I thought a democracy was.
Well, and I agree those are some of the values, that's some of what is at stake. We like our freedoms. I mean, that is a freedom just as the people who want to right to bear arms. That is a freedom. There are freedoms that this society want to have, and when it's compromised, it's a problem. Just like people who don't take my guns. That's a freedom they want to enjoy. So we have to look at that. We have to look, and a balancing test of that freedom and how it impinges on other people's rights, and so on. So absolutely.
Well, you know, we have a little less than maybe 8 minutes to go, so I want you to talk about whatever you think you need to talk about, whatever sound bites you want, whatever you want listeners to hear about. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Well, I think that a lot of people talk about criminal justice reform. I think that there are issues, the bonds issues that you guys have addressed a lot in Harris County. And Federal Judge Rosenthal, in her opinions, also forced Harris County to address. And I think that people need to understand the impact that has had on people's lives. The ability to get out of jail and when you've been arrested is important in more than just an economic issue of, okay, that person is out now. We know bond was supposed to be and always was supposed to be to assure you appear in court. But what happened in a lot of jurisdictions, and we know it, was when people could not get out, they pled guilty to their cases to get out.
Regardless of the evidence, they plead guilty, and sometimes there would be no evidence, and they plead guilty.
And so it created a system of persons who were poor and just needed to get out because they wanted to get out of jail, collecting a criminal history that kept perpetuating itself and used against them again and again and again, and created a class of people that were probably more poor than they were guilty of their offenses. And so goes part of the correlation in the criminal justice system with money and justice. People who could get out could enjoy a more comfortable way to have their case represented and to fight their case. It's not comfortable to fight your case in jail. It's not comfortable, even quite frankly, for your lawyer, to the extent that you're meeting someone through a plexiglass and you have limited resources to show them the media, the CDs, the body cams, and so on. But when people don't have money, they chose a better or a lesser route, and many times it impacted their ability to a trial, ability to fight their cases. And it's something that impacted our system. It loaded it up. I think that also the marijuana use, the ability for the police officers to use the smell as probable cause to search vehicles and so on, also have added up to a lot of numbers in the criminal justice system. Whether good or bad, that's part of the system that has made the system much more heavily populated and made the system where we have more jails, where we have more courts, and where we have more prisons. I saw a statistic. I think America is like, oh my God, if I'm not mistaken, we jail and imprison more people, I think, than any other country in the world.
Absolutely. Oh, more than any other country in the world.
And at a very high amount, high.
But it wasn't that way in America 50 years ago.
That's correct.
So this is like a new thing. It's like post-Jim Crow. It's like more people are now locked up.
Correct.
So.
Or on paper, definitely.
Same
correct.
Same thing.
So, you know, colloquially, what the millennials or rappers would call, it's the trap. I mean, there are traps in the system to keep you like a little mouse, a little hamster, and one of the little habit trails where you're back and forth, in and out, in and out, in and out. I think we can do better than that as a society. I think that obviously we can still be safe. We can still enjoy our freedoms, but we can do better in our criminal justice system. We have a lot of mental health people, mentally ill people. We have a lot of people who on opioids and different drugs and so on. We're seeing some intervention because of those types of drugs, more than we saw on the other drugs. But it's still a problem. So we have to look at these things from a human way. I think if we take every person from that as this is a human being, this is somebody's child, this is someone's sister, someone's wife, someone's husband, and we take it from that aspect, we'll do better. I think somehow we kind of got away from that. And that's
right. The criminal justice system treats people like they don't matter, or this person's life really doesn't matter, so we can treat them that way. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even in that Dallas case, they're trying, the woman shoots the man in his house and they still want to talk about he has marijuana in his system. I mean, what the hell does that have to do with anything? He's in his home.
Correct.
So what?
Correct.
He's high. The cops couldn't get in without a warrant, so that's something that should not have been disclosed.
Sure. So we have to get back to the basics. We have to get back to treating people like human beings. We have to get back to caring. I think if we can do that, we'll make the world a better place.
I agree with you. And I applaud your efforts in trying to do your part in doing that. I know you have a lucrative, successful business. However, it's a big sacrifice when minority women or men and people who have risen hard to become something, when their parents weren't lawyers like yourself, and you try to be better, do better, and make that sacrifice is tough. So I thank you for trying again. I pray that you win. It's as first generation professionals trying, we've
Sure.
bumped our heads on these glass ceilings. Someday we have to bust in, and
Sure.
you can't bust in the door.
Right.
Or
Unless you keep trying.
unless you keep trying. You can't knock that wall down
Sure.
unless you keep pushing at it.
Sure.
So I applaud your efforts, because you're trying to run a full-time business and run a campaign full-time.
Sure.
You're not like Beto, who is a congressperson, so at least full-time he is supposed to be talking to people.
Exactly.
In his district, not around the state, but at least in his district. That is his job.
That is
so with you're having to sacrifice your business and your time
Correct.
every night to try to do that. So I thank you for it. I know you're going to win it this time. So I'll just be praying for you guys and for it being that the best people win, which is you. And the Democratic Party. So thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I hope that Teana Watson has done a great job, in my opinion, and I hope in your opinion, in explaining the importance of voting. We cannot say it enough. That is the only equalizer we have in this society, is whether you're President Trump or whether you're the person on the street. Everybody is equal because everybody has one vote. So make sure to exercise your one vote and get out there to vote, no matter who you vote for. Vote, 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 vote like your life depends on it. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Good night.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in again. Tonight we have something really good.
Yay.
This is a show where I try to